We have some negative attributes, but Chassidus teaches us that instead of negating the negative, pushing it away, we can actually leverage it. We can use negative character traits for the good. This video was made possible through the kind support of my sponsors over at Patreon. Patreon is a great way to help independent creators like myself produce original content. If you'd like to get more English language videos from me, please consider becoming a supporter via Patreon. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much. So our topic for today is how to use our negative character traits for the good. We have some negative attributes, negative properties that we all have, but Chassidus teaches us that instead of negating the negative, pushing it away, we can actually leverage it. We can use negative character traits for the good. And it goes the other way around also. We can use, that's a bad thing to do, but we can actually abuse positive character traits. One can take positive attributes, positive qualities that we have, and use them for the bad. And we want to understand all of this. How can we take the bad and negative character traits that we have and use them for the good? And God forbid, how we may be liable to use our positive traits for the bad. And we're going to learn all this through a segment from the Ethics of the Fathers. The Ethics of the Fathers is, of course, the most well-known Mishnaic tractate. It's a tractate out of the Mishnah, and this is before the Talmud, and it's a special tractate. It's not a halachic tractate. It doesn't deal with Jewish law. Rather, it deals with principles of behavior, how one should behave. It's basic life wisdom of Judaism. And that's what we want to learn today. We're going to learn from chapter 5, section 19, Mishnah 19 out of chapter 5. First, we're just going to read it in a simple way and try and understand what it means. And then we're going to go into an interpretation of it by the Baal Shem Tov, who really makes it much more interesting and sophisticated. And this is where we get the part of using the negative for the good or using the positive for the bad. So let's start by simply reading it. I'm here giving you a translation that's really a combination of two translations that I found. There are many translations, like everything in the Torah. It can be translated in many different ways. There's another good reminder that if you really want to go deep and fully understand in a very precise way a Torah source, ultimately you have to learn it in Hebrew. That's the only way to fully appreciate and understand a Torah source, because it's the wording, the specific words used, the roots used are very, very important. And you have to pay attention. And you can only do that when you read the original. If you can't read the original, if you don't have Hebrew, then the second best thing you can do is compare translations. And you just go over a few translations. And then sometimes they cancel each other out, or even better, each one gives you another insight into the original text. And of course, you can also just focus on particular words. If you can't master Hebrew, it depends on your age, basically. And sometimes it's very, very hard. But what you can do is, if you want to go deep into a source, then you make sure you understand at least the original Hebrew, the key words, that you understand them in Hebrew, and then you can understand them. So here we're going to read a translation that I made combining two different translations. And I'll also say the specific key Hebrew terms that we can have them sort of in the background for those who know Hebrew. So it goes like this. Whoever possesses these three things, he is of the disciples of Abraham, our father. And whoever possesses three other things, he is of the disciples of Balaam the wicked. So Abraham, our father, and Balaam the wicked were not contemporaries. Abraham is the first patriarch, the first father of Judaism, the father of monotheism. And Balaam is, of course, much later. He's a contemporary of Moses. He was the wicked prophet we read about in the last Shabbos. He was the prophet who tried to curse the Jewish people, but ended up blessing the Jewish people, right? And But it turns out that although they were not contemporaries, they are, in a sense, polar opposites, and they can be contrasted, and each one is an archetype of a different mode of thinking, of living. And here, in fact, we're not really comparing them, we're comparing their disciples, i.e. those who walk in their footsteps, who follow their example, who are spiritually connected to who they were, what they were. And of course, this is for all of us. We can be disciples of Abraham, we can be disciples of Balaam the wicked. So anyway, it's not totally intuitive that we put them one across from the other, one as a polar opposite of the other. But here we have this in this Mishnah. So what are the three positive traits that characterize the students, the disciples of Abraham? A good eye, a humble spirit, and a lowly appetite. So a good eye is, in Hebrew, it's ayin tova. It's viewing others in a positive light and being, kind to them and seeing them favorably and not being jealous of them, not looking at what's negative about them, looking at what's positive about them. A humble spirit is ruach nemucha. That is being humble, being modest, not being arrogant, not seeing yourself as above others. And finally, lowly appetite. That was the hardest to translate. In Hebrew, this is nefesh shfela. Nefesh shfela, here nefesh is, we can say soul, we can say mind, but I think the best is appetite, because it has to do with how lustful you are, or how much you want more and more and more things. A lowly appetite is when you don't want so many things. It's enough for you to have little. It suffices that you have whatever you want and you're happy with your lot. So if you have these, you're a disciple of Abraham. However, the opposite makes you a disciple of Balaam the wicked. If you have an evil eye, that is, if you view others unfavorably and you keep looking at their faults and what they're doing wrong, and you're jealous of them and so on, makes you a disciple of Balaam. If you have a haughty spirit, this is a ruach gvoha, a spirit that rises above the others, that feels that look condescending and looks at others from above. This, of course, makes you a disciple of Balaam. And finally, there's the expansive appetite. So here it's, in Hebrew, this is nefesh rechava. That is, you tell yourself you need a lot of different things, and you don't accept your lot. You want more and more and more. This is, in Hebrew, this is nefesh rechava. Expansive is rachav. It's wide. You want more and more and more things. And all these three, so these are the opposites of the first. The wording in Hebrew is not so straightforward. It's interesting that expansive appetite is contrasted with lowly appetite. It's not so obvious that these words are the opposite, but that's the wording here in the Mishnah. So basically, the three things we have here, they correspond to another famous source that we have. It is said that there are three properties or attributes that take you out of this world. That if you have them, you lose your grounding, or you lose your footing in this world. And what are the three things? These are jealousy and lust and honor. Seeking honor, chasing honor. I heard recently an explanation that this follows the person as they're maturing. When you're a young kid, you're jealous of the other guy's toys. And you keep thinking they have more and I want more, so you're jealous. Jealousy is very petty. It's very childish. So children are very jealous of each other. Then as you grow up, you become a teenager, and later on, you're not so jealous, but you are very lustful. That's the second one. It's lust. So you desire of lust, and takes over jealousy. And that starts taking you out of this world, because you can never have everything. You can never have everything you're jealous of. You can never have everything you're lusting after. And so it takes you out of the world. And then as you mature further, people even are willing to let go of what they're lustful for. They're actually willing to even transcend and put off whatever it is they're desiring, they can put off instant gratification, because what are they chasing? They're chasing honor. They want to be honored and respected. They want to be very, very successful. And they're even willing to put away their desires in order. But of course, this is another futile, endless chase, because you'll never have everything the ultimate respect that you're after. You need to be realize that your true honor, your true respect comes from above, from being who you're supposed to be. So here, interestingly, it corresponds, but not in the exact same order. So we can say that the evil eye versus the good eye, it's about jealousy. Because if you're narrow-eyed about others and you don't want them to have what they're having, and to have success, and so on, it has to do with jealousy ultimately. And then the second one about the haughty or arrogant spirit versus the humble spirit, this has to do with the third thing we just spoke about, which is honor, feeling that you're more honorable, less honorable. And then the third one about the expensive appetite versus the lowly appetite, this has to do with lusts. If you're lustful, you have an expensive appetite. You want more and more and more. So these are the three things. And so far, so good. It's very straightforward. And we can tell the three properties are good and their opposites are bad, and it's very simple. Now it becomes more interesting. So we have to read the second part, and this is what gets the Baal Shem Tov going, and suddenly reading the whole thing in a very revolutionary way. So second part goes like this. What is the difference between the disciples of Abraham, our father, and the disciples of Balaam the wicked? So the question here is very, very surprising. We just said what the difference was, and we just laid out the three properties that characterize both. So why ask again? And so the answer would come from the answer. The answer, why do we need the question a second time, appears to be because now we're not talking about other character traits. We're talking about their destiny, or what happens to them, what they end up with. So let's continue reading. The disciples of Abraham, our father, enjoy this world. In Hebrew is ochlin et haolam hazeh. They enjoy, they benefit from this world. They live happily in this world, in the very mundane, worldly way. And they also inherit the world to come. Nochalin olam haba. So they get the best of both worlds. The best of both worlds. They live decently and well, and they actually enjoy this world, but they also are able to inherit the world to come. But then here I'm skipping a verse that is said in order to support this, because it's not important for us. But the disciples of Balaam the wicked, so this is very interesting, they inherit hell, Yolshim Gehenom, and descend into a pit of destruction. This is Be'er Shachat. So this is very interesting. Why? Because we just said about the disciples of Abraham that they get the best of both worlds. They get to both enjoy this world and inherit the world to come. Here it appears that we're told in two different ways that the wicked, disciples of Balaam the wicked, they just go to hell. It's two different ways. Pit of destruction and hell it's like synonyms. So what about this world? So in fact, there is an interesting explanation that tells us, and this is the beginning of opening up the new reading that we're going to present here, is that, in fact, when we're talking about the disciples of Balaam, we're also talking about both worlds. They inherit hell in the world to come. Instead of going to heaven, to paradise, they go to hell. By the way, it's noteworthy that Jewish image of hell is not like the Christian image of hell. For Christians, hell is eternal. And on the way, there's something temporary called purgatory. But then they go to hell. If you're still wicked, you go to hell forever. No such concept has ever existed in Judaism. You don't go to hell forever. What we call hell is what Christians call purgatory. It's a temporary thing either way. But still, it's a negative thing. So anyway, if they're wicked, they inherit hell in the world to come. So what is descending into a pit of destruction, the Be'er Shachat? It means that this world becomes a pit of destruction for them. So then it becomes symmetrical to what we just said about the disciples of Abraham. Just like if you live a righteous life, you're actually able to enjoy both this world and the world to come. Same goes if you're behaving incorrectly, and if you're wicked, you actually lose both worlds. Now, this is very counterintuitive, because the intuitive thought is that if you're righteous and you follow the commandments and you think about the world to come, you don't really enjoy this world, because you can't eat whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, you can't follow all your desires and your urges, and you don't get to enjoy. And you look at frum people, you look at religious people, they seem to enjoy this world less than secular people, because secular people don't feel that they're obligated to do the commandments. And so they seem to have much more fun. And that's why the religious kid could look enviously at the secular kid and say, why can he go do this and do that, and he can go to the beach on Shabbat, and he can watch everything he wants on TV, and so on. And living according to the Torah, you seem to miss out on this world. But this saying tells us that it's not really like that. If you live in the way you should live, and if you follow the commandments with all their limitations and all their boundaries and everything they take away from you, you actually get to enjoy both worlds. Now, the same counterintuitive thing is told us about those who live improperly. It would appear that they enjoy this world. Maybe they lose the world to come. Then they go to heaven, they go to the world to come, and then they're punished, and then they realize that they lived in a wrong way, whatever. But they had the time of their lives. This is the whole idea of the deal with the devil metaphor that has been around forever. That the devil tells you, let's sign a contract, and you can enjoy this world as much as you want, but I'm going to take away your soul in the world to come. Then you'll inherit hell. But you're going to enjoy this world. And here we're told, no, don't. You're getting it wrong. We don't like the whole story with the deal with the devil. If you make a deal with the devil, you lose both worlds. You're not really enjoying this world. It becomes a pit of destruction for you. So this is very interesting to think about. Now here comes the biggest twist, and this is where the Baal Shem Tov comes in. So the Baal Shem Tov is asking, why does the question repeat itself again? Why is once again we asked, what is the difference between them? We were just told what the difference is. And why is the answer to the second question, this is what happens to them, that this guy, the disciple of Abraham, he gains both worlds, and the disciple of Balaam, he loses both worlds. Why is it like that? So the answer to the Baal Shem Tov is unbelievable, and it changes everything. And now we have to reread the entire thing from the very beginning. He says, both the disciples of Abraham and the disciples of Balaam, all of them had all character traits, the good and the bad. The disciples of Abraham had all three negative attributes. They didn't have just a good, they also had an evil eye. They didn't have just a humble spirit, they also have an arrogant spirit, haughty spirit. They didn't just have the lowly appetite, they also had the expensive appetite. Same goes for the students of the disciples of Balaam. Disciples of Balaam had the good eye, and they had a humble spirit, and they had the lowly appetite. So that's amazing. So even before we go into the explanation, this is just incredible, because this is much more familiar to us. We know that people aren't caricatures. And we know that even the worst people in the world, they have some good things about them. That's the way it is. It's impossible to find someone who's purely evil. This is where the whole concept of the Stockholm syndrome comes from. It's you get captured by someone who's wicked. He captured you, and he takes you prisoner. And after a while, you can't avoid seeing their humanity, and you come out confused. You come out sometimes identifying with your own captor. This actually happened now with the hostages in Gaza coming back. Some of them would stress. They saw some good in the Hamas terrorists who captured them. They said some were bad, but some were good, and they were kind to us. And they were very confused. Because once you're close to someone, you cannot avoid seeing their positive. And same goes for when you think that someone is totally righteous and just. If you know people well, you see their faults. It happens. So here we're told, even before we go into the explanation, that they all had the different properties. The righteous people, they have negative properties, and the wicked people, they have positive properties. But now comes the really deep understanding of everything. The righteous, the disciples of Abraham, were able to use the negative attributes for the good. And what happened was, by having the positive attributes, they used them regarding this world. They used the disciples of Abraham, the good people, they used their positive attributes that were listed. That's how they lived in this world. But by leveraging or changing or flipping the negative properties, that's how they gained the world to come. And the other way, and it goes the other way around for the disciples of Balaam. The disciples of Balaam, they used their natural negative properties regarding this world. And that's how it became like a pit of destruction for them. They were envious of everyone, they were full of pride and so on. But they used the positive properties for the bad, and that caused them to lose their world to come. When the good people used their good properties, they used them regarding this world, and they were able to gain this world. But the bad people, they used their natural negative tendencies also regarding this world, and that's how they lost it. And by flipping it around, with the good people using the bad properties in a good way, that's how they gained the world to come. And when the bad people abused the positive properties, attributes, that's how they lost the world to come. So now we'll go over one by one, and we'll see how it works. So the Baal Shem Tov actually explains only one of the properties. And he leaves us with the job of connecting the dots and developing it further and trying to make sense of how it works. So we'll start by what he's saying, and then we'll just expand it and extrapolate from that. So he says the following. He starts with, let's start with even before what he says. Let's start by just going over the properties as we see them on the screen now. So when the disciples of Abraham had a good eye and a humble spirit and a lowly appetite, they applied these properties regarding this world, and that's what made it livable. Before the flip, before we're flipping the negative properties, let's just focus on the good ones. By not being jealous and being kind to others, seeing them in a good light, they could survive this world. They just looked at people in a good way. They didn't suffer so much from what those people think of them or how successful they were. They said, well, they have what they have and I have what I have. And they had a good eye. It makes this world livable. Right? For the wicked ones, it's the opposite. When they are jealous of everyone, they suffer in this world. They keep being jealous of everyone. They see everyone is wicked. They look at them in a negative way, and they suffer in this world. Second one is by having a humble spirit versus a haughty spirit. It also has to do with this world. If you have a humble spirit, you walk in this world and you don't feel you're above everyone. You don't feel you need to justify this certain image of yourself as someone who's super successful, super amazing. And you just learn from everyone because you meet everyone, you feel lower than they are. It's a wonderful thing. And then you learn from them. But if you're walking around feeling that you're above everyone else, you constantly need to justify this image of yourself as someone who's perfect and amazing. And that creates unbelievable tension because you need justifying this image that you're supposed to be amazing. And there's nothing more, there's no bigger burden than walking around in the world feeling that you're supposed to be perfect and amazing. And the same goes for the appetites. If you go to this world with few appetites, then it's enough for you to have little, and then it makes the world livable. But if you constantly feel that you want more and more and more, you suffer in this world. So this is the simple part. This is how the disciples of Abraham enjoyed this world. and how the disciples of Balaam suffered in this world by having these properties. Now let's go for the flip. How does this flip work? So this is where it becomes really interesting. So Baal Shem Tov, he focuses on the haughty spirit, the middle one. So that's arrogance, that's pride, that's condescension. How can that be good? So he says the following. He says, we all need a little arrogance. With a little arrogance, we can do great deeds. This is what he says. He says great commandments, but it's both great commandments and great deeds. You can't do amazing things, incredible things in this world without a little bit of arrogance. You can't be, soft and belittling yourself and feeling that you're very small all the time. You have to have this feeling that I came into this world and I'm not great, but my soul is great. My mission is great. I came into this world. I have a calling. That's very tremendous. And I have to be connected to that. It's a little bit arrogant. And by being connected to this, the faith that I was called into this world to do great deeds, to accomplish wonderful, amazing things, then it gets me going, and I can initiate big initiatives, and I can set up schools, and I can write books, and I can do a lot of things because I feel that I may not be great because I still have a very humble spirit, but I have a little bit of an arrogant spirit or a haughty spirit in a good way. The Baal Shem Tov also explained the same principle regarding one of the strangest things in the Torah, which is the commandment of the red heifer. There's something paradoxical about the red heifer. The red heifer, you need to take a red heifer that's purely red and was never carried any burden and meets a lot of criteria. And if you burn that heifer and you get the ashes and you mix them with water and you can sprinkle it on someone who is impure at the highest level of impurity, which is when he touched or was in the vicinity, in the same room with a dead person, then they become impure, heavily impure. And the only way to purify them is using the ashes of the red heifer. So by sprinkling it on someone who's impure, they become pure. But the paradoxical thing is that the person preparing the ashes and sprinkling the ashes, they become impure. Not the same level of impurity, but they become impure. So the same mysterious thing called the ashes of the red heifer, they can purify you and they can make you impure. So how does it work? So the Baal Shem Tov explains that the red heifer symbolizes arrogance. And he says the following. When you are impure, what do you mean impure? When you are depressed. When you're like dead. Impurity comes from being in the vicinity of someone who's dead or touching someone who's dead. That means you're a little bit dead yourself. So when you are totally depressed and you don't believe in life, you don't believe in yourself, you don't understand why you should get up in the morning, and it's as if you're dead, arrogance is a cure. It purifies you. The red heifer, redness, the largeness of the heifer, all this represents arrogance. And you need a little bit of arrogance because you need to feel I'm destined for more. I'm destined for greatness. There's purpose to my life. There's meaning to. I don't want to waste my life like other people who are depressed all day. I want to be better than them. That's arrogance, but it's good arrogance. I don't want to waste my life being depressed and doing nothing. I'm a little bit better than that. My soul, I was called upon to do great things. And then it gets you up from your bed of depression, from your passive state. But the thing is, once you stand up and you're active and you chose life again, the same attribute of arrogance now makes you impure. Because then you tell yourself how great I am, how amazing I am, and you pat yourself on the shoulder and you tell yourself you're doing all these wonderful things, and then you come full of yourself. So you need to use it when you're down in order to uplift yourself. But once you're uplifted, you need to throw it away and be very, very humble so that it doesn't inflate you and inflate your ego. Beautiful, amazing explanation of the Baal Shem Tov through the red heifer paradox. So the same goes here. The general idea is that we need a humble spirit, but we also need a little bit of a haughty spirit, of an arrogant spirit. And that's how you gain the world to come. You gain the world to come by doing great deeds, and you can do great deeds if you have a little bit of arrogance. Now, what about the evil eye? And what about the expensive appetite? They must also be flipped in some way. So we can extrapolate. So we can say that what is the positive usage of an evil eye, a negative eye, a narrow eye? So this is another basic Hasidic teaching. The basic Hasidic teaching says, why do we have two eyes? So physically, so we have stereoscopic vision, that you can see 3 dimensions. You can see depth. We need 2 eyes to fully see depth. But there's a spiritual explanation also. Spiritually, the right eye is for seeing the good, and the left eye is judgmental. It's for seeing the bad. And the Hasidic explanation is that we primarily need to focus the good eye on others, to constantly see the good thing about them. That's what the disciples of Abraham are doing. That's how this world is livable, because they see the other people and they only focus on the good. But what do you do with the bad eye? You shut it down? You take it out? No. The bad eye you need to apply to yourself, not in a totally terrible judgmental way. It just means being self-critical, observing yourself. You're not here to fix others, but you are here to fix yourself. So if you happen to see a negative thing about someone else, that's applying the bad eye towards them, you need to immediately flip it inwards and say, I'm not here to fix them. I was shown this person with this negative property because I must have the same thing, even if for me it's more minor. Maybe it's even worse, I don't know. But it doesn't matter. Even if for me it's more minor, I need to fix the little imperfection that I have and ignore the large imperfection that he has. All the more so if my imperfection is worse, of course. But the principle is that the left eye, the critical eye, I don't need to apply it to others. The world becomes a world of suffering. I lose this world, becomes a pit of destruction for me. That's what happens to the disciples of Balaam. They look at everyone and they're critical of everyone, and then they hate everyone, then they suffer. So the disciples of Abraham, they only apply the good eye to others. But they can use the bad eye, the critical eye, the judgmental eye. What did they do with it? They work on themselves. What can I improve about myself? And it turns out that when you're busy working on yourself and rectifying yourself, you become even more forgiving to others. Because you say, I wish I could rectify my own faults. And I know how hard it is to rectify my own faults. So it must be also hard for them to rectify their own faults. So then there's like this feedback. The more I use my critical faculty in regards to myself, I can be even more forgiving and having a good eye for others. Right? And vice versa. That's how it works. So the disciples of Abraham were able to use the good eye. They also had the bad eye. The disciples of Abraham were able to take the bad eye, the negative eye, or the evil eye, and they applied it to themselves, in a good way. You also need to forgive yourself. Sometimes you have to see yourself also with the good eye, because you have to forgive yourself for not succeeding. But the main thing is that you don't apply the negative eye to others, because there's nothing good can come out of criticizing others. Even if you see it's okay to see their faults. You can help that, right? You can't help that. But by then transitioning from seeing the bad about others to seeing the bad about yourself and rectifying yourself, you start improving yourself and you gain the world to come. Because you come to the world to come and you can show how much you changed, how much you improved. You improved by not only applying the good eye to yourself. If you only applied the good eye to everyone, And it's wonderful for others. You're forgiving and you're accepting of everyone. You're kind to everyone. But if you're only kind and accepting to yourself, you'll never change. You'll never evolve. You'll never grow. So you need to use the negative eye regarding yourself. Of course, again, it has to be balanced, has to be soft. You don't want to strike yourself and, feel guilty about everything, but you also want to be critical of yourself. It's a basic thing in the world. So that's how you use the bad eye in a good way. And then you inherit the world to come, because you change and you work and you inherit paradise, you inherit heaven. Now, what about the expansive appetite? Again, the Baal Shem Tov only explained about the arrogant spirit. But what the other two, we need to extrapolate. So what is the expansive appetite? So this is another principle we have. It actually comes from the Bible. We are told, Kin'at sofrim tarbe chokhmah, is when you're, well, I'll put it this way. Kin'at sofrim is the jealousy of writers or authors or learners. Basically, it goes like this. Regarding physical properties, money, properties, cars, whatever it is, you need to suffice in little. Whatever the little, it's called samech b'chelko, how one should be happy with one's lot. But in spiritual matters, you should be greedy. There's positive greediness. And the positive greediness is wanting to learn more and to know more and to grow spiritually. So this is a positive usage of having an expansive appetite. You don't apply it to this world. The whole idea started is that the disciples of Abraham used their positive properties regarding this world. But the negative properties, they use them in a positive way, and that's how they gain the world to come. Meaning, they use the expansive appetite, the greediness and the lust and wanting more and more. They wanted that for more and more learning, more and more growing, more and more spiritual knowledge, spiritual wisdom. And that you shouldn't say to yourself, oh, it's enough for me to have little. I learned a little bit, that's enough for me. I don't need to learn more. No. You need to learn, you're greedy, be greedy, want more. Just like you're seeing someone who's never rich enough, and he has $1 billion and he wants $1 billion more. So don't learn from that regarding money, because you should have whatever I have, be happy, whatever you have. But you should apply that negative property spiritually, intellectually, in wisdom, and gain more and more wisdom, and you should never have enough. You should always be greedy spiritually. So that's how the disciples of Abraham used the negative properties in a good way. They use the bad eye, the critical eye, they apply it to themselves, and that's how they grow. They have a little bit of arrogance, which gets them going to do great deeds, to do wonderful things in the world, and you need a little bit of arrogance for that. And they're spiritually greedy. Now, how do the disciples of Balaam used their positive attributes in a negative way, and thereby losing the world to come and inheriting hell? So we start again, we'll go in the same order, because we're starting with what the Baal Shem Tov explained. So how could they use the humble spirit in a negative way? Humble spirit's a wonderful thing. They're humble. What's bad about humility? Humbleness is wonderful. Be humble. Everyone should be humble. They were able to use humility and having a humble spirit in a negative way. How so? They said, oh, I'm so simple. I'm such a regular simple Jew. I'm not supposed to do any good deeds. That's for bigger people than me. They can do good deeds and great deeds and so on. So not only are they not doing great deeds, they're not doing good deeds at all. Because they're telling, oh, I'm such a simple person. I'm not going to do great deeds. That's an abuse of humility, of lowliness. You use lowliness and humility by telling to yourself, oh, no, it's not for me. There's some people, they're amazing, they're great, they're wise, and they can do those things. But no, for me, no. I'm not in that level. No, you are in that level. The arrogance that you have, you should use it just like the disciples of Abraham are having, and tell yourself that you can do great deeds, not even good deeds. You can do great, amazing deeds. It's believing in yourself in a good way. So the opposite of believing in yourself in this good way is telling yourself that I'm not in that level. I'm not in that level. I need all kinds of things that I can give myself a lot of discounts, and I don't need to strive and do a lot of good deeds and perform those commandments and observe Shabbat, whatever it is, doing all those things. It's no, I'm some simple. I don't have the shoulders for that. No, you do. Now, same goes for it's just the opposite of everything before. How did they abuse the good eye, the positive eye? So the opposite of the disciples of Abraham. They were only kind and forgiving to themselves. That's all they did. They kept telling themselves, I need to be very, very forgiving. I need to love myself and embrace myself and hug myself and embrace my faults. And it is true to a degree, because just like you're viewing others kindly, you should view yourself kindly. But the difference is that you're also supposed to be critical of yourself and judgmental of yourself, and ask yourself, be very focused. Focus your left eye, your judgmental eye on yourself, and ask yourself very honestly what you're doing wrong and what you can change. And by only using the good eye on themselves, they lost the world to come. They came to the world to come, and then they had nothing to show for changing themselves, because they only worked on loving and embracing and accepting themselves. And if you only accept yourself, that's horrible. So that's abusing the positive eye. You need to focus the positive eye mainly on others. You need the positive eye on yourself, similar to the ashes of the red heifer. You need the positive eye on yourself when you hate yourself. So then you need to tell yourself, no, I have good things about me. I have good, and then you have to view yourself as someone else. Just like when you're taking care of someone who hates himself, and you need to tell him, no, encourage him. The same goes for yourself. But that's like first aid for yourself. First aid is when you're wounded, you hate yourself, and then you need first aid. But it's not preventative medicine. Preventative medicine is when you're able to be critical of yourself and judgmental of yourself, and yet be kind to yourself at the same time. Use both eyes. So if you only have the good eye on yourself, you come empty-handed to the world to come. And you lose paradise. That is, you lose the rewards for working on yourself and improving yourself. And then finally, the lowly appetite. We said, what was the using in a good way of the expensive appetite? That was being spiritually greedy. So the opposite of this is being spiritually modest. It's a bit similar to the abuse of the humble spirit. The humble spirit is I'm so small, I can't do these amazing things. And this is very similar. It's saying, oh, I'm so simple, I'm so being like modest in such a way that you don't want to learn so much, and you don't want to know everything. There's a famous parable by the Baal Shem Tov that there were two friends, and the two friends both realized that God is unknowable, that ultimately God is unknowable. But then what they did with this is two opposite things. One of them said, well, since God is unknowable, I'm not going to try to know God. I'm going to just sit in my state of unknowingness and focus on not knowing. And that's it. You can't know God. So I'm going to sit outside the palace in some ashram and tell to myself that it's all about unknowing and not knowing because there's nothing to know. But the other one, the friend, he said, yeah, I know I can't fully ultimately know God because God is infinite, but I'm going to do my best to try. And he goes into the palace and goes from room to room, and he looks at the books and tries to learn them, and he looks at the paintings and tries to understand them, and he looks at the treasures of the king and he tries to make sense of them, and he goes from chamber to chamber and goes higher, learns more and more and more, and ultimately he doesn't arrive at the inner chambers of the king because the king is unknowable. But the difference is that the second person A, gained a lot of wisdom on the way, which the other one outside the palace didn't gain, and B, he now truly knows that he cannot know God. Whereas for the other person, he simply maybe believes he cannot know God. But it hasn't really checked. He hasn't tried. And the difference is, this is basically the difference between Oriental spirituality and Jewish spirituality. Oriental spirituality is you can't know God, so focus on not knowing. And it's all about emptying your mind, emptying your consciousness. But the Jew says, of course, God is unknowable. But we have the palace and the library and the Torah, and there's so many things to learn on the way. And the more you learn them, the more you appreciate how much you don't understand God. But you gain a lot of wisdom on the way. So this is spiritual greediness versus a kind of saying to yourself, oh, I don't need a lot. I can be what's the opposite of greedy? I'm, sufficing in little. So you suffice in little spiritually, that's a bad thing. So that's the disciples of Balaam using the positive attribute of having a lowly appetite, not an expensive appetite, but abusing it. They're using it in a bad way, and they're saying, oh, God is unknowable, I can't learn anything. Anyway, it's infinite, I'm not even going to try. And then they end up very impoverished, very poor spiritually. So then they lose the world to come. So ultimately, to sum all this up, is that the message of Chassidus, which is explained in many different ways, and that's a big characteristic of Chassidic learning, Chassidic wisdom, is that Chassidut tells us we can also serve God with our negative attributes. It's all about using them for the good. And it's a process. We can sum this all up with the principle, again, another Baal Shem Tov principle called submission, separation, sweetening. The submission stage is to read the Mishnah very straightforwardly. And by straightforwardly, I'm telling myself, these are the good attributes that I need, and these are the bad attributes that I don't need. And this is submission because you tell yourself, I don't need the negative eye, the bad eye, I don't need the haughty spirit, and I don't need the expensive appetite, and that's it, you push them away. Then comes the separation stage. The separation stage is saying, hang on. Chassidus teaches me that I can use the negative attributes for the good. I don't need to push them away. They're part of me. I have those evil inclinations, those negative attributes. I have them. What can I do? I can use them for the good. And the sweetening stage is when I actually do that. When I'm able to use the negative, my judgmentalism and my arrogance and my greediness, and I can actually take those attributes and channel them in a productive way, then it's unbelievable sweetening, because then not only do I make this world very bearable and I can enjoy it and I can live in a very healthy, spiritually healthy way, but I actually gain the world to come. That is, I gain the higher form of wisdom and knowledge and wealth of, divine rewards. I get all of them by flipping and using those negative properties for the good. So this is the submission, separation, sweetening model and how it's applied here. And we end this class by blessing all of us and praying all of us that we are able to utilize and apply this Hasidic teaching. And each one of us, we know what our negative faults are, what our negative properties are. And we should tell ourselves they're negative, but they can also be used for the good. We need to take them and leverage them in some way and use them in a constructive way. And then we gain the best of both worlds. Hi everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, please press like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. If you want more English language videos from me, please consider becoming a supporter via Patreon. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much, and see you in the next episode.